Peace everyone, Unmasked here, and today I'll be showing you a little bit of how I go about illustrating. So one of the first things that I did when I started this project was talking with the author of the book to determine all of the elements that she wanted present in the illustrations. Some of the important things that I took note of: what style. So I got reference photos from different styles that she liked and wanted me to emulate in my work, whether it's simply color choices or the way that it's drawn or even the medium in which it is done in. For this illustration project is watercolor color pencils. Yes, so that was the very first thing that I did, because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be a style or a medium that I wasn't going to be able to work in competently. After I established these first few things, I had her send me the story and I read it, and from there I was able to roughly estimate about how many illustrations I'm going to need to do for the story. So after I did that, I determined that I needed about 15 to 20 illustrations. From there, I did a very, very rough sketch of each of the illustrated pages. And right now I'm actually working on the third page of that book. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on how I do each illustration, the process that I take for each illustration. One of the things that I really didn't want to let myself do is get overwhelmed with this project. This is the first time that I'm illustrating an entire book, so it is a little bit intimidating. And the purpose of this video, or the video series that I intend to do following my process, is just to help give some tips that I've come across that are helping me through this project. So once I had all of my rough sketches for every single illustration, no page was left without an illustration idea, a rough sketch. The sketches took me no more than 5 minutes to do. And as I'll show you, they're absolutely horrid looking because I'm just scribbling down to kind of get the structure of how the page is going to look. The other thing that I did was I wrote up a contract for the total cost of the illustration. Now this gives peace of mind to both the illustrator and the author. And laying out each of the drawings, it helped me determine how much time this is going to cost me. And it also let me put it in a way that presented a reasonable price that wouldn't scare anybody seriously considering getting a book illustrated. That was the very next thing that I did before I started any final drafts. And also, the other thing that I did is I required a deposit for me to start doing the final drafts. Now, before I got paid anything, I did do all the consultations and got all the details necessary to start, and I did rough drafts. I also showed her the rough drafts so that she got more comfortable with my idea on how I was going to lay out each page. And then once I was finally prepared to start the final drafts of each of the illustrations, I required the deposit. And once I received the deposit, that is when I began doing the final sketches. So before I get any further with this video, I just want to show the step-by-step process and the overall idea that I am taking to approach this large project. Now, I have about 4 illustrations complete, and I have about 15 more that I need to do. In general, the approach that I'm taking to this project is to do the rough sketch, the final sketch, and the inking of every single illustration before going through and coloring it all. So I'm leaving all of the coloring until the end. This also helps me eliminate any unnecessary work if I were to finish an illustration completely and color it, and the author wants something changed or added, I would have to start all over on the same illustration. Whereas if I leave the coloring to the very end, then I can get feedback and only have to redraw and ink the image instead of having to redraw, ink, and color it. So only once I have all of the illustrations fully inked on my final draft paper, only then will I begin to think more precisely about my color palette and how I want to lay out the color palette for all of the illustrations. It'll be much easier to work on all of that all at once. So now I'm going to show you the process that I'm taking on each and every single one of these illustrations to keep my workflow from feeling too overwhelmed. I'm just taking it one illustration at a time, and it really makes the overall work seem a lot smaller. So here's the illustration for the first page of the story. Now, right here is the very, very, very rough sketch. After I had the rough sketch, I went on to lay it out with composition in mind. Now you can see that the full page kind of encompasses the story a little bit more. It's a little bit more fuller of a sketch, and I'm starting to get the body language more precise to what I'm trying to portray in the story. Again, here's the first one. As you can see, it's very, very rough. And then the second one, you can see it's starting to get a little bit more clear. And then from this one, I do another rough sketch. And this one, I kind of bring the characters in closely, a little bit more intimately. The body language is much more open, and you can see that it feels like the characters are engaging in a conversation. Now, this is still not the final sketch because I need to go through and add all of the little details that make this scene really come to life. And that's what this final sketch is. Now, there's one element that I left out of the final sketch because it was easy to add after I take this sketch and get the foreground the way that I needed it to look. So I sketched this 4 times before ever moving the idea onto my final draft paper. And it really saved me a lot of erasing when it came to doing it on the final draft paper. And so that's what I'll show you now. And so here is the final inking of the first scene of the story. And you can see that it filled up the paper really nicely, and doing all 4 sketches really, really helped this scene come to life. I never rushed anything, and I made sure that I got each element exactly the way that I wanted it before moving on to my final draft. And currently, right now, I'm working on the 3rd page of the story. So with that said, I'm going to get back to work, and hopefully this video gave you a little bit of insight on maybe what steps you could take if you're thinking about illustrating your first book or illustrating anything in general. And I'll probably do a few more of these videos just covering any new ideas that I come up with as far as steps that I learn or mistakes that I make that maybe you can look out for in the future. But yeah, hopefully you find this video interesting. And if so, give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments if you have any questions. And be sure to subscribe to check out the next video. Take care. Peace.